Tuesday. It is Tuesday, June 29th in the year of 2021, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the kind words, the flowers, and the cards last week as we laid my dad to rest. It was a very personal and dignified funeral mass and burial, thanks to my sisters, Donna Gossen Thomas and Kimberly Gossen Brown. It was a family passing of the guard, as my dad was the last of his 11 brothers and sisters to pass on. Again, thanks to all of you. The death toll from the tragedy in Florida's Sunrise community has risen now to 11. More than 150 people are still missing. Search efforts continue around the clock at the collapsed Miami area tower. And the blame game has already started, of course, with records showing an engineer warned in 2018 of major structural damage at the condo complex. So what we can do is send blessings and prayers their way, because we know that they'll be able to use them. It is hot. It is hotter than hot in the Pacific Northwest. A heat wave has baked Portland, Oregon these last few days, and Seattle, Washington. On Sunday in Portland, where temperatures are normally in the 70s this time of year, the temperature reached 112. That's right, 112. And 2 weeks ago, we had the season's first tropical storm. Now we've had our second, I think. There's quite a bit of damage and some lives lost, so we can't continue to deny that there's something going on with climate change. And finally, former police officer Derek Chauvin, convicted murderer of George Floyd, was sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison for the murder. Chauvin will be kept in isolation and be allowed outside for 1 hour a day. When you think about it, or maybe even if he thinks about it, all he had to do was take his knee off of that man's neck, and he would probably be at home today. Chauvin still faces federal charges of violating Floyd's civil rights. It's too bad. Okay, our G-List guest today is sponsored by Mainstream Financial Group. Mainstream Financial helps to bring financial vision and clarity to your retirement plans. Our guest today is sports journalist and good friend Matt Coulter. I traveled all over Canada one summer with Matt and the Birmingham Barracudas football team that played in the CFL, the Canadian Football League. We had a lot of fun, and I'll let Matt tell you about it when he comes on. Matt says, and what he's going to really talk about today, he says there's a perfect storm occurring right now in collegiate sports following the Supreme Court ruling on enhanced educational payments to players, the expanded playoff talk, the name and image lawsuit, and the report. We'll see what that has later on in the show. So Tuesdays with Thom is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Who is Best Girl and what is Best Girl? We'll take it away.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
All right, Best Girl will customize a solution to fit your needs. So let's go to the round table, the regulars, and introduce Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace-Edwards comes from Mobile, Alabama. She is a world traveler, and let's see what she's been up to lately. Barbara, what's happening in your world?
Good morning, Thom. How are you today?
I am doing just great. What about you?
I'm trying to make it through this raining Tuesday morning. But
Is it raining there, huh?
It is raining here, and I think there's rain in the forecast for the remainder of this week. So we'll see how that goes. But it's really coming down out there right now.
Okay. I I saw the proprietor of the office that you visit to do your show last week,
Wonderful.
Mr. AJ Ruffin. We had a good discussion, and he mentioned said Barbara comes over to our office every Tuesday morning and does her show.
Absolutely, and I appreciate him allowing me to do that. I'm still having internet issues at home, so it's a blessing to have a place to go to be able to do the show.
So what's happening in your world?
Well, Tom, I'm just back from my trip to New Orleans. My nephew, Brendan, better known as Buck Wallace, and his beautiful bride, Becky, were married this past weekend, and it was sort of like a family reunion. Since COVID, we haven't been able to get together for family reunions, so there were a lot of family members there that I had not seen in quite some time, and it was absolutely wonderful, a beautiful, beautiful ceremony that they had, even though it rained in New Orleans as well. But the sun finally came out, and we were able to enjoy the wedding festivities. And so it was a great trip for our family.
Good deal. So it sounds like you enjoyed it.
We did. Had a great time.
Okay.
And things are sort of back to normal down in New Orleans. We kind of I walked through Bourbon Street. Some of them stayed on Bourbon Street quite often. But, the crowds were just like the normal crowds. No one was wearing masks. There was no restrictions in going into the clubs and the restaurants. And so I was sort of amazed that things are just opened back up like normal. And that's sort of shocked me. So I wasn't prepared for that. But I was masked up. You better believe it. Every time I walked out the door, I'm triple masked.
Yeah. We were there just a couple of weeks before you. And there were some people were in the mask, particularly when they went inside of places.
Mm-hmm.
Walking the streets or what have you, they were pretty much. But, down here on the Gulf Coast, it's like it never happened. I mean, people have come down here and it's like a jailbreak, man.
Absolutely.
They're everywhere.
It's amazing to me. Again, we went out to several restaurants and, again, several of my family members got out to go to some of the venues there, and they said hardly anyone had on mask. And there was no restrictions, no 6 feet apart, no, maximum number of people that could go into a building or venue. And I was just shocked that things are just so open again.
You sent me a thing last night. I think it was about the image. Go ahead and tell me what it was about.
This is the NAACP ruling on athletes.
Yeah.
Yes.
NAACP.
Yeah. It sort of reminds you of NAACP. I'm opening it up here, Tom. Let me see.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is you can open it up. We'll come back. We'll go to Michael and get an introduction there. We'll come back and we'll talk about it. And we got Matt Coulter on today, and I'm sure he wants to talk about it.
Absolutely.
You can probably ask him some great questions. Morning, Michael. How are you?
Well, good morning, Tom. I'm doing well. I hope you are too. And good morning to you, Barbara.
Good morning.
I'm doing well. Michael, what's happening in your world?
Well, it's interesting that Barbara talked about her visit to New Orleans and the lack of masks and what have you. Over the weekend, WHO, the World Health Organization, came out and contradicted CDC, Centers for Disease Control. You'll hear a lot about that in the news, but basically, the World Health Organization is recommending people that are fully vaccinated to continue to wear their mask, especially in indoor arenas with large gatherings and even in some smaller venues. The reason being is because of the Delta variant. And they feel also that people that did not get vaccinated could have the variant and pass it on to people that are fully vaccinated. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. CDC hasn't responded, but the World Health Organization is all over the news saying they're recommending people to continue to wear their masks, practice all of the hygiene and everything we did prior to the vaccinations coming out.
Okay.
One other thing that I'd like to bring into that is that last Thursday, the Biden-Harris administration announced a tentative agreement of a nearly $1 trillion infrastructure plan. What's important about that is that it includes tens of billions of dollars for home health care. You know that the aging population with the U.S., with the baby boomers and what have you, there's going to be a strain on long-term care. So this will provide a lot of money for home health care. There would be a $65 billion for a build out of broadband infrastructure. That's to connect rural communities to healthcare utilizing telehealth. Telehealth is going to be here to stay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely. I want to talk about that image and likeness, but I wanted to ask you guys this. Did you guys see this thing where this woman opened her bank account and she had $1 billion in there?
I did.
I did. I saw that.
So what would you do, Barbara, if you saw $1 billion in your account?
First of all, I'd probably faint, but I would notify them and go ahead and return it because they're going to take the money back. Probably not initially, because possibly I could earn a little interest off of that account.
You
not
say
much.
You could keep it for a day.
Yeah, exactly. Just make me feel good about it. But I'll eventually go ahead and return it. Now, there are people that will fight. They'll fight it to the end, saying, "No, you put it in my account. It's my money." But you lose eventually.
And what about you, Michael?
Well, first of all, I would double check to make sure that my eyes were not lying to me and go through the proper channels. But I may be mistaken, but I thought I read deeper into that, or in another news cycle that I get, that the bank said that it actually was a negative balance or something like that. So it wasn't really actually $1 billion in there. So I don't know. With these computers and everything, sometimes things get crossed up. But regardless, it was a mistake.
If I had a negative $1 billion, I'd really be worried.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was she.
And if I had $1 billion, I might just leave it in there for a day, though, like I didn't see it, just to see if it would be in there again tomorrow. Because if it's in there tomorrow, then I got to do something. I remember talking to you last year, Michael. Maybe it was about this time. And I went into one of my business accounts, and there was $5,000 in there that I didn't put in there. And so it was like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And I think I started talking around to people, and they said, "Well, man, that's probably from that stimulus money that they gave you, or whatever."
Yeah, well, so that was the idle loan that you and I discussed that you applied for.
Well, at that time I hadn't even applied for it. It just showed up in my account. And,
wow.
Hey, I was grateful.
Did you get it back? Did you send it back since you didn't apply for it?
Huh?
Who are you talking to?
So let's talk a little bit about image and likeness before we go over to Matt. Michael, both of you guys' opinions. Does this mean that if somebody puts my picture on that deck of cards like they got going around out there, that I can get some money?
You should be able to.
I don't know, Thom. As with anything like this, you have the legalese involved. I'm sure there's a statute of limitations on it. So
that's not fair.
I'm just telling you the way it works.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not counting on it. I just think it's interesting. Again, I think the differences is when we played, we were able to have summer jobs. We could go home at Christmas. There were just a few more, and there certainly wasn't the amount of money in it that's in it now. Now, I do remember that we had really good seasons, flowing over from Pat Sullivan into my 3-4 years. And so they were able to add on to the stadium when we were there, which meant they were making some money.
Right.
And we all, I think in that era, you played more for your school than you did for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not blaming the kids because, hey, it's a heck of a lot more money in it now than it was when we were playing. But I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I think it's probably worth it, and hopefully they'll work out some fair system because the quarterbacks are the guys, but it's the left tackle that protects the quarterback.
Absolutely.
And so what's the left tackle gonna get?
Yes.
What's the right tackle gonna get?
Right.
Well, Thom,
Comment.
I have a couple comments that's interesting. One is many people may not remember this, but Chris Rock said several years ago, and he came out and he was lambasted for this, saying that the college football teams were a modern day form of plantation and slavery. And he was one of the first people to come out and say that it's the players that's making the money and they're getting free labor. And I think some people didn't take him seriously because he's a comedian, and then other people were angry at him for making his comments. Now, here we are right now. And on a personal note, back when Michaela was playing basketball at Wake Forest, there was an action photo of her that had been done in a poster that I had. And I went into Kinko's to get some copies of it so I could share it with family members. And I remember the person at Kinko's says, "You don't have authorization to do that." I say, "I do. This is my daughter. I've had authorization ever since she was born. I want this replicated." So it was just interesting having that conversation with him, wanting to challenge me on getting a reprint of my daughter playing basketball.
Wow.
I read this thing, and this has been a while back when this first started, but one of the small businesses in where Notre Dame plays said that those 8 Saturdays when they play home games, the businesses gross out about $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
And they make that money. As a matter of fact, my good friend in Auburn, Trey Johnson, Trey told me, he said, "Thomas, these 8 Saturdays is where we make our money for the year." And it's just interesting that the people who generate the money were never allowed to participate.
Right.
And I think it changed, and this is maybe something, and maybe it's something I'll ask Matt, but I think it changed because the demographics changed.
Mm-hmm.
They went from all white guys to all black guys, primarily.
Right.
And so then the issue of race was entered into the equation. And, as you just said, Chris Rock said it was slavery by another name. So, I don't know, things get complicated, but
they do, Thom, but I do hope that they have an opportunity to figure out some type of system where they can pay the players, but it's not just a couple of players, that they figure out a way. Like you said, the offensive tackle may not get any notoriety because his name's not mentioned 1,000 times, and his picture's not plastered everywhere, but he's an important part of that team. So if they can figure out a way to pay all of the players and give them some type of compensation across the board, then I think that that would be the fair thing to do.
It's going to be interesting though, because you're in the sports information office, the SID, and
Yes.
and their job is to promote the team, promote the players.
Mm-hmm.
So they're promoting the right tackle, and does whoever is in charge of doling out the money say, "Wait a minute, man, you promote that guy, I'm gonna have to pay him more money," or what have you? So I think it's going to open up quite a few issues.
True.
In terms of how this is actually going to work. We had a meeting with a client the other day about a speech that we've been hired to deliver, and the title of the speech is about change. And one of the things I read a while back is that everybody's for change in the beginning, and everybody loves the change once it occurs and it goes forward. Mm-hmm. But there's the messy middle
in between.
And
yes.
I think we're in the messy middle part of it. We're going to be in the messy middle part of it for a while in terms of how this plays out.
Yes.
Michael, you got anything else?
No, that's it. Looking forward to our guest today and talking to him about name, likeness, and image, and see what he has to say
All
about it
right,
since
well,
he's in
we'll
the business.
we'll move on. Barbara, you good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's go to our G list, and we'll go to our G list sponsor. The G list is where everybody is a star. And Mainstream Financial Group is the sponsor for the G list. Mainstream Financial Group provides financial services for both individuals and businesses. Their mission is to understand the unique needs of each and every client and to work closely with you, assembling a planning team to develop and manage your plan to help you accomplish your defined financial goals. Mainstream has financial professionals who will provide you with a complimentary, no obligation financial review. These professionals can then offer the custom advice you need to mend together the pieces of your financial life and come up with a plan that is truly, truly comprehensive. Mainstream Financial assists retirees and near retirees in planning for a secure retirement so that you do not run out of money during your lifetime. So you can take advantage of opportunities with tailored advice and the resources to act on it. Mainstream Financial Group, financial vision and clarity at www.mainstreamfg.com, 888-324-0589. And now our G-list guest for today. Remember, Hollywood's got the A-list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we got the G-list, where everybody is a star. Our G-list guest today is Matt Coulter, sports journalist and good friend. Matt was the first reporter at the Druid City Hospital when Paul Bryant passed away. He's traveled Europe with Kenny Stabler, but he says he can't talk about that. He's done national TV and radio shows with the Wimp Sanderson, and he has Charles Barkley on speed dial. So, Matt, how are you, brother?
I'm terrific. And as you well know, whenever we get together, smiles break out. That happened the first time we ever met. And I think it might have been back when you were a news anchor at 42. We might have met then.
You remember that?
You make me smile, Thom Gossam. And that's why when we were on the road in Canada, we had a lot of fun.
When I worked at Channel 42, I had a blue Nova with 42 logo on each side. And they would call me the newsman. There goes the newsman.
Yeah, they used to make us wear those jackets with the logo on them. You remember that? They were about the size of a plate.
Yeah, they did. And I worked with some guys that were veterans who'd been around, and they taught me a lot. So it was good. So where do you want to start? You want to start with Canadian League, or you want to start with the Perfect Storm?
Let's talk about the Canadian League. First of all, Michael, I appreciate him in Atlanta because apparently he and I are the only ones that hadn't been to New Orleans lately. My wife just got back yesterday.
Did she really?
Yeah, Barbara, if you'd have seen her down there, you'd have known it. She went with a couple of elementary school buddies. So now I want to go to New Orleans and get some of that crawfish etouffee.
Oh, man.
For those that don't know, Thom, for 1 year and 1 year only, the Canadian Football League tried to move south. There were teams in Baltimore,
San Antonio,
Shreveport. There was one in Memphis, which I just vaguely remember. But anyway, they put one in Birmingham. For some reason, they called it Barracudas, which are certainly indigenous to Lay Lake. I had done play-by-play, and you had been a broadcaster. So they just kind of married us, and we knew each other. We were acquaintances, but we got to know each other in a hurry. And I think fondly on our trips, didn't you like the style of football?
Oh, I loved it, man. I really did. I loved the fact that wide field, the fact that the guys could go in motion. And the difference, they would have maybe 20,000 people at the game, and that was okay with them. They didn't have 50, 60, 70,000, and they would have picnics going on around the stadium. It was just a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun.
And the Molson Gold was flowing freely. That's one of the other things I really liked about Canada, first of all, and I'm not slamming our country too much in this regard, but we're kind of messy, you know? Man, Canada is so clean. They limit their billboards. You don't find McDonald's cups on the sidewalk. They're very proud about that. But another thing, and I'll bet you noticed it too, Thom, is the fact that I thought, other than their and their accent, they were a lot like Southerners. They were very laid back, very polite, very courteous, and I like that. But the big thing, Thom, and we were pretty good. We made the playoffs. We got Matt Gunnigan from somewhere. And I'm going to admit, I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm going to have to go back through this. But here are the places we went to: Winnipeg, Hamilton, British Columbia, Calgary, Ottawa, Memphis. Do you remember going to Memphis? Do you remember the Mad Dogs?
Yeah.
And then we went to Shreveport and to San Antonio. It was a great trip. And you and I spent, if you're the play-by-play guy and the analyst, you spend 4 hours together in a booth. But when you're on the road, you all travel as a team. So you and I had a lot of good dinners and a lot of good talks. We talked about your days at Auburn. We talked about my limited career as a sports journalist. But all I remember about it, Thom Gossam, is it was all good.
And I remember I had to miss a game for another. I had a previous engagement, and we got our general manager to be in there with you. My good friend
Roy, the Shiv.
Roy was cursing. Roy was dogging out our coaches and the whole bit.
Oh, he forgot he was on the air, Thom, or maybe the more likely scenario is he didn't care.
Yeah.
But no, we were at the Orange Bowl in Miami. It was some kind of massive exhibition game. It was a lot of fun going to Miami on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. You had an acting gig or something like that.
Yeah.
I can remember. I don't remember whose idea it was, but they put him in the booth with me, and he destroyed a couple of sets of headphones. He dropped everything except the big bomb, and I kept trying to settle him down, but it wasn't happening. Not with the Shiv.
No, it wasn't. And we had this one guy, the Spoon, I think it was what we called him, and he was offensive lineman.
You're not talking about Chill, are you?
Chill, the big Chill. I keep getting him
Arkansas. Yeah.
And
huge man.
The Chill had in his contract that he got paid so much money per game, and if he had a good game, they threw in a fifth of whiskey with it. So after the game, I'd be sitting in the general manager's office, and he'd come in there and he'd hand him a bag. I said, "What is that?" Well, that was his payment in addition to his check for the good game that he had.
Well, I also remember that the Big Chill gave us some advice on where to go.
Yeah, he did.
He had been in the Canadian League, as had many of the players on our roster. And, man, they knew where to go. And so we took their advice. And, again, we had a whole lot of fun.
Well, I can just testify to the fact that it was worth everything we had to do when we went to Vancouver.
That's the prettiest city I've ever been to in person.
Yeah.
It's just it was unbelievable.
And Shiv rented a convertible Mustang, and when the team left, he left me the Mustang, and I ended up staying there for another week.
Good move, Thom.
I've never regretted it. It was absolutely wonderful. I'm gonna get. Let's get Michael and Barbara on here. They want to talk about this perfect storm, and I'll let them start it off with you, and then we'll come back. Matt, why don't you first of all talk about what you see as the perfect storm, and then they'll.
Okay. First of all, it's a pleasure to be with both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have talked about the name and image and likeness, which in theory it's a good plan. Let's compensate those that are getting the most attention to your program, whether it be, volleyball or football or baseball. You're going to have to figure out a way that you can do it and also govern it because how do you pay a football player in a market the size of Los Angeles, a car dealership royalty, as opposed to one, in Lincoln, Nebraska, although Nebraska is big enough to handle their own. But that's the first one. The second one is the playoffs. That's going to drastically change college football. We've gone from 4 to 12, and that in itself and the format is going to change everything. Then you've got the transfer portal, which in my personal opinion is a mess. And I don't know how they're going to be able to bring that in. But you got players transferring twice before they ever take a snap or make a play at another university. A kid in Louisville signed and then didn't play there, and now he's off somewhere else, and he never even went to practice.
We had a guy. Can I say this? We had a guy at Auburn who transferred from Florida State. He lived in Atlanta. He drove over for practice every afternoon, and then he drove back to Atlanta and never went to a class. He was just a little ahead of his time. That's all.
The transfer portal before transfer portals were cool.
Anyway, go ahead.
And then the fourth part of this is the Supreme Court ruling about allowing student athletes to enjoy benefits as long as they contribute to his education. And to put this in terms that I can understand, that means you can hire a player for an internship for a couple of weeks in the off season and pay him. I mean, you pay him $100. From what I understand, you can pay him $10,000 a week. So, you're going to have to harness that as well. But I'm not being a negative Nancy here, because I love college sports, and it's been a part of my life ever since I got into broadcasting. But I do think the powers that be, now our court systems, now the individual states, and certainly the NCAA and the institutions, including all of their players, we're going to have to tread lightly, because we're breaking up a lot of norms over the past 100 years.
I hear you. Well, let's go to the guys, Barbara and Michael. Barbara, you're up.
Thank you. This perfect storm is truly a perfect storm, because there's a lot of moving parts and pieces there, like you said, Matt. And I don't know how it's all going to turn out, but it's going to be interesting. You get players just signing with a particular school because they have an opportunity to be paid more to attend that school, because they have an opportunity to be on TV more. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it all turns out. And just to get away from that just a little bit, I just want to ask you, I know you've been in the business for quite some time now. Do you have what has been your most memorable interview or person that you talk with in your career? I can agree with that.
I was privileged enough. Well, like you said, traveling Europe with Kenny Stabler. I remember when I was like 33 years old, I was sitting literally on the banks of the Mediterranean. We were in Barcelona, and there's a picture of sangrias larger than our screen here. And I'm sitting there with Kenny Stabler. I look at myself and I go, what in the hell did I do to deserve this? And so traveling with Stabler was big. I was very blessed enough to have covered Coach Bryant in his last 2 years. And Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley. I could go on and on and on at how, and I'll use the word again because it's so appropriate, how blessed I've been in my career. But Barbara, I thank you for the question. And since you're in Birmingham, if you want to get coffee later, I can go on a long time.
Let's do that.
I want to ask you something here. Coach Bryant, Coach Saban. Compare them.
I think the obvious one is that, don't get me wrong, Coach Saban's Coach Bryant had a hell of a lot more charm than Nick Saban. But they are much alike in they do have passion for their players, and they care for their players. And it's not just on the football field. They care for their players and their lives. And you've seen what they've grown and gone on to do, not just on the football field, although he's got more in the NFL than any other school right now. But also, brilliant mind from a football standpoint. here's one thing that they both certainly shared is they knew how to gather people around them that they trusted to make decisions. And that's tough for a lot of micromanagers to do, but both could do that. And I think they've also learned to change. Coach Bryant maybe more culturally, but certainly Coach Saban's learned to change with the game. Y'all remember it was Trent Richardson up in the middle for 4 yards. Now it's Mac Jones to Devontae and 87-yard touchdowns. So they have a lot of similarities and a lot of likenesses, but the one common thread is they both win.
There you go. Okay. Michael, you're up.
Yes, Matt. I would like to, I want to go back to name, image, and likeness, but one comment about Nick Saban and Coach Bryant is that I remember Coach Bryant saying that the key to good leadership is surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you and being able to work with them. And that's what makes you successful. And it seems like Saban will do the same thing because all of his coaches usually go on to do very well.
It's a good point, and I'll interject here real quickly. Coach Bryant would admit that. Coach Saban never will.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that. That's why I hesitated on bringing Saban into that.
But it's true. I mean, Sagan's ego is a lot larger than Paul Bryant.
Absolutely.
But I'm amazed that he'll hire former head coaches.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying.
He'll bring them in, and that's you got a lot of coaches that won't do that.
That's true.
Tom, and that does ego check. I mean, because you know that you can take care of that. I've known a lot of coaches that had a chance to hire former head coaches, and they were afraid to because they thought they might take over. But that is certainly not the case with Nick Saban. Nobody's taking over at Alabama as long as Saban.
He's in charge.
No question.
To move on to my question with name, image, and likeness, it was reported today and in an article that there are about 8 teams that are kind of ahead of the curve. Some of the usual suspects: Alabama, Georgia, Florida, a lot of schools in the SEC. I think it may have been another school in California, whatever, where the state's legislatures have already passed a law to implement that. And then I saw where some other states wouldn't do it until 2023 and on down the line. It looks like to me that there's a possibility that the rich will get richer in this situation.
Of course.
Yeah.
Michael, it's a great point. In fact, that's a common thread with all 4 of these elements of the perfect storm. Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia,
LSU, maybe.
LSU. I mean, LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma. They're all going to get stronger. There's no question about it. The transfer portal favors that. Nick Saban has been all over this name, image, and likeness since it was mentioned as a possibility. He already has a group staff that can deal with TV, radio, print. Particularly social media is going to be huge in this part. And they already have people in line. Now, for name, image, and likeness, the player or the team has to go out and get it on their own, but nothing says the University of Alabama can't give them guidance. And Tom, you can relate to this. They can act as their ad agency, and they can point them in the direction. They can't sign them, but they can certainly give them counsel. And Alabama's already ahead of that. Ohio State's already ahead of that. The same is true with the playoffs. It's going to continue to favor the Big 4, Big 6, whatever you want to call it. And the Supreme Court ruling, that's going to favor the teams that are already prepared, and it's the same list of characters. So
let me ask you this on that same line. So can they do an internship with? Let's use Auburn for instance.
Okay.
Can Auburn players do an internship with an Auburn alum? Which used to be alums couldn't be involved for some reason. And can they, in this name, image, and likeness, can an Auburn car dealer sign an Auburn player to a contract?
Yep, absolutely.
They can?
Now, I'm a little gray on how the internship works, but as far as I understand it, if Best Girl wants to hire or give an internship to, the next Charles Barkley that's signing with Auburn, You can do that. They can come down there, Pensacola, Fort Walton, and hang around and learn from you. And you can. Here's what I want to say. What I need to know: how much do you sign the check for? And who knows how much? I mean, you sign it for $10, you sign it for $100,000. I don't know, but that's what a lot of this canvas is still blank, and there's going to be a few spills during the construction of this painting. I will tell you one thing that I found very interesting, and my buddy, New York Times bestselling writer Lars Anderson, 20 years of Sports Illustrated. He's a good friend. We have a podcast, and we were talking about it. Georgia. And I think it was Barbara that brought this up, how individual states are going to have their own legislation. And I think this is very cool, and it's a really good direction, in my opinion, is that Georgia has it to where, let's say, JT Daniels, their fabulous quarterback, one of the reasons why the Bulldogs would be favored this year to win it all. But JT Daniels will get, let's say he gets $100. I'm just going to keep it real simple here. Georgia has it where 75%, in this case, $75, goes back to the university for the whole university to pay out all of the student athletes. Now, that's not such great news for JT Daniels, but if you're the backup safety or the point guard at the end of the bench or the alternate on your volleyball team, I want to know what y'all think about that, because I think that legislation is something I wish all states would move toward.
Yes.
So let me make sure I understand. So JT Daniels, somebody gives him $100, he gets 25, and 75 goes to the university, and they spread it across the athletic department.
Yep. Wow. As far as I know, at first I thought it was just within his own team, but now I understand it that it will go across all of the student athletes, and that means that everybody's going to make a little bit from wearing that UGA on their shirt. I think that's fair. Now, I don't know if 25% to the main influencer here is fair to JT, but I like the formula a lot.
Yeah. Michael, Barbara, what do you think?
I like that formula as well. I talked about how I think they have to figure out a way to compensate all of the players, not just on that particular team, but throughout all sports. And I like that formula. Again, I'm not sure I like the 25% going to the main influencer. I think they should get a little bit more than that. But they have to come to some type of agreement that is not just going to all go to that one player. Or, again, you're going to have schools like Alabama, they're going to be turning away all the 5-star athletes because they have an opportunity to get more money to go there. So I like that plan.
My input on that, I would concur, but I'd like to look at it from a different scenario. Using Tom's analogy earlier about the left tackle is protecting the quarterback. If the left tackle is going to get some money because JT is performing better, which is a direct impact on him playing left tackle, he's going to protect JT Daniels more and take care of him to make sure JT is more successful so he can get more money. So from that standpoint, I see it as a positive.
Oh, I do too, because you face it. Now, if your quarterback's getting all the money and the guy blocking for him isn't, I'm not going to say he's going to away the oncoming linebacker. Especially at their age,
right?
That's going to create some friction within the locker room, and I would hate to see that as a side for this entire ordeal. Because I think we'll all agree on this, and we're trying to benefit the student athlete, and I think we need to keep that goal in line. But you can't just keep the individual in line. You got to consider the team, and not just the college football team. You've got to consider, your cross-country team as well. I will add one other thing because I think we're running short on time. I'm not as versed on social media as a lot of us. I've never been to TikTok in my life. I barely do Facebook. But don't forget the influencers. Some of these volleyball players have 400,000 followers on Instagram. That is cash. That is cash for the individual. Just remember, you didn't necessarily hear it here first, but social media is going to play a huge role in name, image, and likeness.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me ask this question: the transfer portal. How many times can a person transfer?
There is no ceiling.
Wow.
That's sad.
It is because you get disgruntled, misguided young people, and the next thing you know, who was it that I saw? Didn't Christian McCaffrey's son? Isn't he the one that's transferring all over the place? But again, I'll go back to what Michael said, and it's so true. The rich get richer. Let's just run through this real quick. Look at the Tennessee linebacker, the Ohio State wide receiver that just transferred where? To Alabama. They were both starters. Yes. So, I mean, those are teams that are contending already. But if you look at the middle of the road teams, let's say you're looking at Iowa State, which that's a bad example. They got 4 potential All-Americans coming back. You heard it here first. Cyclone's going to be good. But the middle of the road teams, where are you going to go if you're a player at a middle school and you want to win a championship? You're going to transfer up. You're going to put yourself in the portal, try to play at Alabama. Now, if you're at Alabama and you're not getting playing time, where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go to Central Florida, where you're going to get a lot of playing time under Gus Malzahn. Again, Michael has it. Rich are going to get richer, a lot richer.
Wow. Michael, Barbara?
Yes, I have a question. Matt, I'd like to switch with you a little bit and go back to your days of doing the announcing. I have a couple of questions. One is, you announced several different events, or say sporting events. Which was your favorite? And which was your favorite?
There's nothing like college football. But college. Here's what I really say, Michael. If I can bail out, whichever one's on. My favorite game is the next one I do. I know that's a cop out. And I start talking about how much fun college football was, and then I remember my days when I was at UAB with Mike Anderson. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. That was as fun as a person could have. Yes. But my true love ever since I was a little kid is baseball. And I will say this, believe it or not, baseball is probably the toughest to do because there's so much downtime. But that's a good question, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did a great job of not answering it.
Yeah, I know you did. Yes, you did. Just like a politician. My other follow-up question is, you mentioned the Birmingham fire. And back when I spent some time in Birmingham, we had the Birmingham Stallions of the USFL. Tell me, how did they come up with these names? And you got the Birmingham. I didn't even remember the Birmingham Fire, but I remember the Birmingham Stallions. That was one of my accounts, and there were a lot of players from Auburn and Alabama with the Stallions that were in school when I was there.
I think Thom played for the Stallions, dude.
One of them. I forget.
The Stallions I can understand. The Vulcans and the Americans I can understand. But what was the owner's name? A.L. Johnson for the Barracuda style? Was that it?
Yeah.
Huge insurance magnate. I mean, this guy, did we fly right? Did we eat well?
Yeah.
Charter flights everywhere. He treated us very well. But somebody finally said, what the heck, Barracudas? And he said, it's alliteration. At least he was honest. Birmingham, Barracudas. There you have it. That was to be such a brilliant man from a business standpoint. That was a pretty simple way to go.
So will we back to this college football thing? Will we see it to try and level things out? Will we see a salary cap along the way somewhere?
That's a question I was not prepared for. But on the lighter side, I don't see one right now. Boy, does the team have a cap too?
I'm thinking if in fact Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU, if they've got this natural built-in advantage, then perhaps they have a lower threshold of what they can spend on their players as opposed to a Central Florida and as opposed to Louisville.
So they get
just a thought.
So they get a larger budget.
Yeah.
I don't know, Tom. You gave me something to think about when we wrap up here.
I remember when Tree Rollins signed with the Atlanta Hawks, and he had been, and Tree said, "Hell, I had to take a pay cut to sign with the pros. I was making more money in college." Of course, nobody was paying anybody back then.
Right. Well, I have one other question I'd like to ask you, Matt, going along those same lines, Thom. Will this make the NCAA obsolete? Because the only thing they do is police unspecified or illegal benefits. So now they won't have a job to do, will they?
They'll come up with something.
Or they'll have too large a job to do, or they're going to dump some of this back on the universities, is how you legislate all these many, many changes in the face of college athletics. So I don't know. The NCAA is they're obviously, from an image standpoint, they're taking a beating. And in some cases, I think they take too much. In some cases, I don't, because as long as I've been in and covering college sports, the NCAA to me has always had an arrogance about them that left a bad taste in my mouth. And I think, man, the Supreme Court just absolutely slammed the NCAA. So we'll see what happens. But again, one of my many points that I hope I've been able to articulate here is that these are all good rules in theory. How are they going to really work out? And how do you legislate? You police them. You govern it. I don't know. You don't have large enough staffs to do that. We'll see.
Well, and if you think about it, and we've got a question from one of our viewers here, so I want to get that in. But if you think about it, so now when a kid's in 6th grade, 7th grade, and they want to go play college football, their whole focus can be different now in terms of what they expect when they get to the college level. And what do you do with kids like me who walk on and get a scholarship, and then so you can get a scholarship, Thom, but you're not eligible for this other money because you didn't sign a scholarship right out of high school. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to have to be worked out.
Absolutely. And if you're going to get some of that money that's spread around by taking a percentage of player A over here, do you only give it to the scholarship players? You know, that doesn't seem right. But you've done what we're all going to be doing over the next few months, and that's think it through. And you're just going to find a lot of potential landmines along the way. And one is that if this were in place back when you were playing, Thom, you know, you might have gotten cut out of the loop. Gary Headley would have gotten all your money.
Well, you're probably right. But and he'd still be talking about it.
Oh, let's call him right now. How many carries did you have against Tennessee? 34. I love him, but he knows
I got takes here from our audience. Stefan Demi said, thanks to today's show, I'm not considering a career change, and I'm probably going to sign with Alabama. Hopefully I can play. He says I'm old enough, so hopefully I'll play in the Senior Bowl.
There's the true Senior Bowl.
Becky Davis Gibson says, can the kids sell their autographs?
Yes, absolutely, and that's one of the ways they'll do it. You know, dealership will hire them. They'll come on the grounds for a couple of hours, and they'll sign, and they'll get paid, whether it be per autograph or just for the entire appearance.
Wow. Okay.
Here's another one. Here's another one that I think they're going to do. You know how the celebrities, people ask for Thom Goss and say, hey, Thom, would you record the voice message on my outgoing phone? Okay. So, hey, this is Thom Goss. So go Tigers. But, you know, now you could get, you know, Bryce Young, the quarterback at Alabama, he can record your answering service deal. Or he can call your mom and wish a happy birthday through the, what do they call them? Cameos. A lot of money to be made there too.
So you remember the guy from UCLA, Ed O'Bannon, I think it was.
Basketball player. Yeah,
had the lawsuit a while back. Where does that fit in? Because wasn't he asking for money for his services at the time.
Yep.
So where does that did his suit lead to these others, or
directly or indirectly? I think it really did. And somebody needs to write him a check, because he really did start all this. Back in that late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it in the 70s though.
That was a check.
On the paycheck.
It took a minute for that to sink in with y'all, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I admit it freely. It really did take a minute. I was going, what the heck is he talking about? Well, I ought to get a percentage for interviewing you.
Yeah, you should.
Where's the media?
We're
getting really shut out here.
I think we're all going to figure out angles where we can get paid.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on. Matt, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you so much. It's great.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Barbara.
Definitely. We're going to have you back on during the football season. And as this thing progresses, you'll probably be our guy that we call on. Thank you so much.
I'd love to be. It's been a real privilege talking to you folks. Have a wonderful day.
All right.
You too.
Okay, thank you. That was great. Matt's been a good friend, and we have a lot of fun when we get together. So let me wrap up. I'll end with words from historic leaders about the upcoming 4th of July. Frederick Douglass, July 5th, 1852. Frederick Douglass said, "The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, but not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn." Susan B. Anthony, the first woman portrayed on an American coin, Susan B. Anthony said, "Our faith is firm and unwavering in the broad principles of human rights proclaimed in 1776, not only as abstract truths, but as cornerstones of a republic. Yet we cannot forget, even in this glad hour, that while all men of every race and clime and condition have been invested with the full rights of citizenship under our hospitable flag, all women still suffer the degradation of disenfranchisement." And John Kennedy said on July 4th, 1946, "Our idealism element of the American character is being severely tested. Now only time will tell whether this element of American character will be true to its historic tradition." And finally, on this July 4th, I wish I could play it for you, but I can't. And that would be Jimi Hendrix's version of the Star-Spangled Banner on the celebration of the 4th of July. And that's how I see it for this Tuesday, June 29th, 2021. And that's our show for today. So I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank Michael. Thank Barbara. Thank my good friend Matt. Our upcoming G-List guests will include Chris Woods, running for mayor of Birmingham, David Housel, athletic director emeritus at Auburn University, Ainsley Carey, the VP of Student Affairs at the University of British Columbia, Fry Gallard, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Mr. Fry. If I didn't, forgive me. Writer in residence at the University of South Alabama. I want to thank our sponsors, Best Girl Inc. and Mainstream Financial Group. You know somebody who you think would make a great guest for us, please refer them to us at either Thom at bestgirl.com or Emily at bestgirl.com. I want to thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer. Thanks, Sean Jones, the organizer. Remember to enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.